am really passionate about what I do. I mean, it's an almost spiritual thing for me. It is frightening, it is ridiculous, it is difficult. Sometimes I work for 16 hours straight, but at the end of that 16 hours, I just feel like I'm ready to go to sleep and wake up again and do it all over again, which I don't think is true of all jobs. So I think as an indie developer, I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, I think that you'll work just as hard, if not harder, but it's, at least if you're the kind of person who ends up in that spot, I think it's probably like a lot easier to do that work, especially if you're in your 6th month of doing it or something. It doesn't wear on you as much, I think. But you still are putting in those hours. So a lot of the, some of the crunch is the fact that it's, just crushing your soul, but some of it is just the sheer time you're putting in, and that doesn't go away. Is it friendlier? I agree, like, AAA devs are very friendly. Like, I think the difference is that, I mean, I say that like there's some other mythical beast, like, I mean, some of my best friends are AAA developers. But I think that the main difference is that a lot of the time it's very easy when you're in a large studio to have that be your entire community and not step outside of it at all. And that's what I used to do a lot when I first started off. Like, I came to Post Mortem every once in a while, but my community was my studio. Whereas for indies, we tend to be much more externally community-driven because our studio is very small and alone in the woods. And you want to find other people in the woods so that you can be a big torch-bearing mob and go hunt the dinosaurs. No, wait, no, the furry mountains. No, you want to get out of the woods. It's definitely about the woods.
There's a forest somewhere in that now.
There's definitely a forest.
Okay, so one of the nice things about working at a big company is you are responsible for one small aspect of what you're doing. You do X, and other people handle Y and Z and A through whatever comes before X. And so when you're an indie, you don't really have that as much anymore. So what dumb shit have you done? Ichiro, let's start with you. You got very excited about that question.
Yeah, because the dumb shit that I've done sort of cuts across all of these roles, like business, development, management, etc., etc. I think the thing that I've done that's dumbest, that's most general, is to not look back and to do sort of a post-mortem, a retrospective of what we've been doing in any area. So for example, I have literally spent years working on a game by myself back in the day, before realizing, well, this isn't going to fucking work. This is crap. I have also, all right, I'll give you another couple examples, or another example, but the way to fix this is essentially to sit there for a minute and look back with your team and write out, okay, if this didn't work over the past 6 months, why didn't it work? How are we going to make it work? Example, internships. I think over the course of last summer, we did a couple of internships. I think Ryan is here somewhere. Where are you, Ryan? There you are. And we did our internships assuming that the students had 20 hours a week to work, which was great. And then over the school year, we did internships assuming that they had 20 hours a week, which they didn't because they had like 80 hours of coursework a week. So we just kept going, we'll just keep doing it this way until the end of the school year when we realized it didn't work. So what should we have done? The answer is obvious to me now. We should have sort of regrouped and thought, what are we doing wrong? What are we doing right? We actually did end up doing that at the beginning of the summer, and we came up with, with a plan for going through the summer, which is working well. So to keep my long-winded answer short, wrong thing is to just go blindly, tactically. Right way to do it is to step back and think about it strategically and just solve all the problems that way.
I'll note real quick first that the process of indie development is regardless of whether you're doing it as a business or not, is the same as starting a business in that you are going to get up every day and make mistakes, constant, huge, mind-shattering mistakes, and you're going to be like, I cannot believe the magnitude of this error that I have just committed. And the people who keep going are the ones that win. Because the trick is to show up. Being a leader and running your own business, and being an alone indie developer means that you just kept showing up and working. Like, eventually you learn that you were doing the wrong thing and you do the right thing after that. And that's the trick, is like, you have to keep going. That said, so I've made lots and lots of mistakes, big and small. The biggest one was making a game that was friggin' enormous, right? All Heroes Die was a huge, huge game. It still is, and much of it is not created yet, because it's a huge game. And so, at the same time, I would never change that, and I'm really proud of it, because I don't know if I hadn't shown up with an ambition that was just way crazy, if I would have gotten out of bed to do it. So I wouldn't have gotten anywhere if I hadn't tried to make that game, because that was the game I was passionate about. And everything I learned past that, all the mistakes I made and successes I had, came from that, and that passion for it. So even though it was kind of like, you know, it was not something that I could execute fully on, it also was the only thing that I think that I could have made. So I'm certainly glad I did it.
This one time I declared this variable and I totally didn't initialize it. It's a terrible mistake. Besides that one, you know, I say that when we started Moonshot, it was just two of us. It was me, an engineer, and a designer, a good friend of mine. And I would say that one mistake that I certainly made early on was sort of not taking sort of the production and business side of things as seriously as I probably should have. You know, at some point we were sort of talking, hey, should we look for, you know, someone who, you know, who could take care of the business side, who has, you know, has a Rolodex that can, like, get us indoors and stuff. And I was kind of like, you know, we're so small, we're so indie, like, we don't need someone, you know, full-time on that. Like, that would be just a waste. And at some point, like, you know, my friend sort of convinced me otherwise, and we actually brought in a third friend of ours who had also been at Bungie with us. And it became, all of a sudden, very clear how much of a full-time job, even at that very early stage of the company, business production, sort of external relationships actually was. Not the least of which is that sort of he got our sort of accounting in order, our legal in order, you know, got us into a lot of you know, meetings that were very helpful, where we got a lot of good feedback. And that was sort of an eye-opener for me. It was sort of like, wow, I didn't actually think that there was enough for a person to do full-time. And there really was. So that was nice.
So just to recap, for all of you out there, the dumb shit that has happened are not getting enough feedback on your game and trying to do everything on your own without others, right? You were saying that you worked on this game for years.
Are you fucking listening to what I'm saying? No, that was my example. But, you know, the broader thing was essentially not working tactically instead of strategically.
Okay. And then trying to do a project that's a little bit too big for your first time out, although there was some good to that. Sorry. Trying to do a project that was too big, so the scope was too big, but
yeah, scope.
Okay. And then, you know, not focusing enough on the business side of things, right?
And not initializing that variable.
Okay, and the variable. Good, I hope you're taking notes. All right, so no panel is really complete without a fun and exciting lightning round, right? Wouldn't you agree? If you would look under your chairs, you'll see that I prepared some party favors for you. And I apologize to people over there, but there's 3 sheets of paper with 3 very simple responses to questions. You can show them to the audience if you want. Oh wow, all right. That is a confident man.
Dude, that's so indie.
So they have 3 pieces of paper. They have 3 pieces of paper. One says yes, one says no, and one says no, except Ichiro only has 2 now. And what we're going to do for our lightning round is, I'm going to ask, the question is the following person or group indie? And all you need to do is hold up a question that says yes or no or on, depending on how you hold it. And then you hold it up for the whole audience, and we can have a couple of seconds to discuss, especially if you guys say wildly different things. Okay? So, the question is the following indie a studio that has 15 people or more working on a game? It can be, right. The question is, can it be indie? Okay. A studio that has 100 or more people working on a game.